my notebook. Sure that I like. I think I could share it with you. It began with the verse in Tehillim, chapter 22, that we say is the psalm of the day for Purim, we say. And the rabbis say, right, chapter 22, for the conductor on the Ayelet HaShachar, Keli, Keli, lama zavtani, my God, why have you left me? You're far from saving me. And all these different references, the Gemara learns out that this is referring to Esther. The Gemara in Megillah, when Esther reached the chambers of idols on her way through the royal palace to petition Achashverosh. I'm reading the commentary here. The divine presence of Shekhinah departed from her, and she exclaimed, my God, why have you forsaken me? And this psalm also is replete with other prophetic allusions to Esther and the redemption she wrought. And the opening verse refers to her, for the conductor, Lam Natseach, Ayelet HaShachar. Ayelet HaShachar, the morning star, the morning hind. The Ayala is a type of a deer, hind, they translate here. The Gemara goes on, though, in the Yoma, page 29, why Lama nimshala Esther l'shachar? Why is Esther compared with the morning? Ayelet HaShachar, the morning hind, or what's this got to do with the morning? So the Gemara says to tell you, Ma shachar sof kol halayla, just like the night, that the morning is the end of the night, right? At the end of the night is the shachar, the morning star, the beginning, that's why it's called shachar, the dark. It's like the darkest before the dawn, right? We talked about that. How right before the bigger light is what seems like even more darkness, but that's like the shachar, the morning, with the shachor, which is dark, but that's the usher is in the morning, right? This says the morning, the new day. Just as the morning is the end of the night, so too Esther is the end of all the miracles. That's what the Gemara says in Yoma, page 29. So you're all looking at me astounded. What's the question?
Miracles are included to the nighttime?
Oh, that's one question, Yafeh. Esther is seems like the morning is the end of the night. So the Marsha asks what you asked. Usually the night is symbolic of the exile, and redemption is the day. But what other question? The end of the miracles. Esther was the last miracle, the end of all the miracles.
What's the miracle?
Yeah.
Esther?
Oh, that's interesting.
What particular miracle has been ended? I mean, there's a lot of miracles that have been after.
Oh, like what?
Like Medinat Israel.
The Gemara asks a different question. Ha'ika Chanukah, the miracle of Chanukah. Purim was, we said, 3090 was the Balfour, the Chorus declaration. The Jews come back to Israel. Achashverosh, the party of 3395. 3404 was they draw the lots for Haman when he planning to kill the Jews the next year, and Adar 3405, which was when Purim was. Hanukkah was 3622, another 100 and something years ago after that. So what does the Gemara say? The last miracle is Purim, the end of the miracle. So you have a lot of questions, interesting, good questions. What's the miracle? We'll see. What's the miracle of Purim? But the Gemara says, what do you mean? There's other miracles, other holidays after that. We have Hanukkah still after that, commemorating the miracles of Hanukkah. So the Gemara answers, Nitna liktov kamrinan. The Gemara says that Purim is the last miracle that's recorded as part of the Tanakh. Esther closes the Tanakh. There are other miracles afterwards, but Esther is the final, the closing, the last event, so to speak, that the Gemara, the Torah talks about, that that finalizes, closes the Tanakh.
Without
what?
It's the penultimate.
No, the ultimate. No,
it's
the
like,
final.
This is the last miracle that we see Hashem exist.
That's what we'll see. Why it's summer, but that's meanwhile. Nitna lichtov kamrinan. The last miracle recorded in the Tanakh. In other words, there's none after. Not that no miracles after that, but none are recorded in the Tanakh. Hanukkah is not in the Tanakh. So the question is, why not? Like, why wasn't Hanukkah included? Why happened another 100 years? Why did they close the Tanakh, so to speak, the final, the scriptures, the Holy Scriptures are closed with this last miracle of Purim? Why? So the Gemara in Megillah, page 14, says there's a criterion for what enters the Tanakh, what is included in the Tanakh. The Gemara says there that there were many prophets, but only the prophets that were needed, necessary to have a message for all generations. There are many more prophets than what we have in the book of the Tanakh. It says twice as many as that left Egypt. Millions of prophets. We had prophets, amazing, a nation of prophets in the land of Israel. But the criterion for entering the Tanakh was that which is needed for eternity, for eternal content. And without Esther, the Tanakh wouldn't have been complete. We needed one other. This book of the Megillah of Esther teaches us something that Esther and the whole Tanakh teach all that we need for the rest of history, the rest of the eternity. All the messages that we need are now written. Esther and the rest of the Tanakh. The question is, what does Esther add, and why not Chanukah? What Chanukah wasn't needed? Chanukah is also for generations we celebrate. But apparently,
weren't they at one point hundreds of years after, or maybe not even hundreds? They didn't want to include Hanukkah as a Chag or...
No, but here the Gemara says why not? Because the criterion is for eternal message. So the question is, we'll see what Rav Drukman explains. What's the message that Purim adds to the Tanakh that was incomplete without it? And what Hanukkah is apparently not necessary. Nothing against Hanukkah. However, to go back to explain that, the Gemara in Chulin, everyone probably heard of this Gemara in Kuf Lamed Tet, 139. The Gemara asks, Esther min Torah minayin. Where is Esther written in the Tanakh? In the Torah. Not in the Tanakh. Esther min Torah. Where is it written in the 5 books of Moses? Where is Esther written? So again, what's the question? What do you mean? Esther was 3,400, whatever. What did I say before? 100 years? 200 years, right? 200 years before Hanukkah. But what do you mean Esther in the Tanakh, in the Torah? It took place like a long time after the 5 books of Moses. So to explain the question, before we get to the answer, the Gemara in the Nedarim 2022 says that if the Jews had not sinned, they only would have been given the 5 books of Moses and the book of Yeshua. The Gemara goes on there to say why. That's the Torah. The value of Eretz Yisrael is in the book of Yeshua. In other words, Torah and Eretz Yisrael is all we would have needed. Had we not sinned, all we needed was, again, the 5 books of Moses and the book of Yeshua to understand the value, the significance, the centrality, and the possession of Eretz Yisrael. Just like the first Rashi says, why did the Torah start with Breshit and not with the first commandment? Right? And in Shemot chapter 12, to tell you the value of Eretz Yisrael, to understand that first God created the world, right? If people say Rashi, the first Rashi, you all know, on the Chumash, that if they come in the future, that perchance someone might say that you're thieves, you stole the land of Israel, it's not yours. You should have the book of Breshit to tell you that how God created the world, gave it to this nation, whatever, took it for them, and gave it to the Jewish people, promised them, it's the land of the Jewish people. I don't know if that could ever come about, right? That anyone would doubt the true possession of the Jewish people on the land of Israel. But Rashi, that first Rashi in the Torah said the whole Torah started with that just to tell you, to foresee that possibility of some hypothetical claim that you stole the land, it's not yours, you took possession of it. But nevertheless, still, all we needed was the 5 books of Moses and the book of Yeshua. The rest of the prophets come to elaborate, to scold us, to rebuke us, to remind us to keep the Torah. When the Jews leave and do other things that aren't good, had the Jews not sinned, they wouldn't have needed all those prophets. We would have had prophets, but not the books that we have. That mainly the prophets say, like the final prophet, Malachi says, Zichru Torat Moshe, Abdi. Listen, remember the Torah of Moshe. And with all the prophets come to rebuke and to tell us and remind us and to keep the Torah. But the main edifice, or the main thing we need, the structure would have been just the 5 books and the book of Yeshua. The Gemara in Tanit, page 9, has a question. Rabbi Yochanan asks, where No, he says, Leika midi lo mizramat. There's nothing that's not hinted to in the Torah. Like, you don't have the Gemara here. So Rashi says there, the prophets and the, how do you say, the Ketuvim, the writings, right, the Tanakh, the other two sections, the prophets and the writings, they're all hinted at, they all have their foundation in the Torah. The roots are in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses. So Rabbi Yochanan asks, where is that certain thing there, he asks a certain verse, where is the roots of this, the book of Mishlei, I think, verse in Mishlei, where is the roots founded in the Torah? In other words, the 5 books. In other words, the 5 books is the roots, which are expanded, like I said, elaborated and expanded upon in the prophets and in the writings. Just like Rav Kook says, how the Shir Shirim, the Song of Songs, is like the elaboration of the verse, the condensed verse of you should love God, the loving of God. The loving of your God with all your heart. So the whole book of Shir Shirim talks about the love of God, of Jewish people, and the Jewish people to God, this relationship. So like it's an expounding of, but from the roots. But the roots, Rashi says that, explains this Gemara, that what do you mean there's something hidden in the Torah? Every word is it hidden. Where are the roots? Not hidden, rumuz, hinted at. Where are the roots of the this content in the 5 books? So going back to the question in Chulin, the question was, where is the roots, where are the hints to what took place in the time of Esther? Not that Esther is written in the Torah, chronologically it happened afterwards, but where are the roots? Everything has its roots, has its foundation in the 5 books. So where is Esther, the topic of Esther, the content of what happened at the time of Esther? Rashi says, I think the Maaseh of Esther, the what took place at the time of Esther, where is that found in the Torah? So the verse they give is what? You've heard the answer. Anochi aster astir panai b'yomahu. I will hide my face in that day. The verse in Devarim, chapter 31, that you shall, if you forsake me, my anger will flare, and I will conceal my face from them, and they will become prey, and many evils will come upon them, etc. So it says there, Anochi haster astir, in chapter 31, verse 18. Chapter 18. What?
That was a spell.
Oh, so it sounds like the answer is just like a play of game. How do you say play of words? Esther astir. Whereas like Esther in the Torah, it says haster astir. Like it sounds like it's just saying. It sounds the same, or similar, whatever. But rather, Rashi says, like I said, the Maaseh Esther. This is referring to the content of Esther. In other words, the hidden face of God that took place at the time of Esther, like that she says, God, why have you forsaken me? It looks like you've left me. Here I am abandoned and going into this palace of the king, and I was taken to be his wife, and here why I'm lost, like what he said here, the divine presence departed from. She felt the Ruach HaKodesh, this divine spirit left her. So here, this abandonment of God, what took place at the time of Esther, or we'll see, as took place to the Jewish people, seemingly God left them. They're the decree of destruction. They're being there. It looks like everything is the end. God is, where is he watching us and guiding us? He's abandoned us. So the whole thing of, where is this abandoning of God? What looks like abandonment of God of the Jewish people, where is that found in the Torah? Where's the root to that historical phenomenon that took place at the time of Esther? But where is that found rooted in the Torah? So the Gemara says in Chulin, the Anochi Aster, I will hide my face in there. There's a time in history, there's a point, there's a guidance of God that looks like his face is hidden. Not that he leaves us, but his face is concealed. You don't see his face. He's watching, but it's concealed. The Ramban on the Torah explains, what is this haster astir? I will hide my face. How do they translate that? I will forsake them and I will conceal my face from them. But anyway, in Hebrew, it's the double. I will haster astir. I will hide my face. So the Ramban says there's 2 types of hidings, 2 levels here. One is the hiding of the face of his mercy. That usually God has mercy and watches us and protects us. And here I will hide my face of mercy. In other words, you'll find things that will come upon you that are not merciful. In other words, there will things that will come upon you that will take place of this pogroms and Holocaust and things that looks like he's not watching them. He's abandoned us. this hidden face, this concealed face. The second concealment is the face of the redemption. That the redemption also will take place in a way of what we call the natural redemption that we studied about, right? That the redemption itself will be a hidden face. You won't see revealed miracles like in Pesach or whatever, the splitting of the Red Sea and plagues. Here you will be, my face will be sitting, you'll be redeemed. So there's one hidden face of the guidance that you'll be left to the vicissitudes of life and the nations and what they do to you. It looks like God is not watching and protecting you. And then the other hidden face, the other aspect of the hidden, the double hidden, is even the redemption will come in this hidden way, in the natural way. The Maral explains the double wording as one, that the hidden face of God is the exile in and of itself. Being an exile, as we've seen, the face of God is not revealed, cannot be revealed to the Jewish people outside the land. It's this hiddenness of God. And the double is the problems, the suffering, the decrees, pogroms, etc. in the exile. And you have a luxurious exile, which is also the hidden face of God, inability to fully express his name in the world. But there's also within the exile, the double jeopardy, whatever, is that the suffering in that exile. So Esther teaches us this content of the hidden face of God, the guidance of God when it looks like he's hidden, and the suffering, and what 2,000 years of history have been pretty much this hidden face of God. The Gemara in Megillah, page 6b, talks about a leap year. When do we celebrate Purim? When do we read the Megillah? In a leap year. Because the verse says, you shall celebrate whatever, b'chol shana v'shana, every year. So the rabbis learn from that, every year should be the same thing. So one rabbi says, yes, every year, just like every year we celebrate in the Adar that follows the month of Shvat, so too, we should have Purim, the month that follows Shvat, the first Adar. The other rabbi says, no. Just like every year we celebrate the Purim and the Adar that precedes Nisan, so too, when there's a leap year, we celebrate the Adar that's next to Nisan. And the rabbis give reasons for each one. One of the reasons, the principle says the first one that we did, the first Adar, is the mitzvah comes to you, you should do it. You shouldn't push off a mitzvah. That's why also tefillin, you should put the tefillin in a way that when your hand should reach first, or not pass over the tefillin of yad when you want to put on first.
The order of tefillin.
The order of putting on your tefillin, first the hand and then the head, right? So it's not good to take out the first of the head and then put it aside and not do the mitzvah and that and do the one of the hand. You should take out the one you're going to do. In other words, not to pass over, not to embarrass, but so that it's not to push off the mitzvah that you started with, so to speak. You took this and then you put it away. So the first Adar, grab it. First Adar, have Purim. The other rabbi says no. The lismach gula legula. You should, the juxtaposition of redemption to redemption. There's a value of putting the two together. Rashi says, what redemptions? The redemption of Purim and the redemption of Pesach. You should put them together. You should have the second one right next, second Adar, so it'll be right next to, or right closer to the miracle of Purim, of Pesach in Nisan. So there's two types of redemptions here, in Purim and Pesach. And the value, and we do, as you all know, we're celebrating next week in the second Adar. So there's a value that supersedes the usual commandment, certainly the principle of not passing over the mitzvot, like also on the Seder plate, to set it up in a way that you shouldn't pass over. You want to get to this thing, pass over. Right? You shouldn't reach over the other things that you're supposed to use. I'll use that later, but you reach over it. You should put them in a way that you reach the one first that you're about to do, and not to push over, pass over, as if you're less important, I want to get to something else. So there's a principle in that in a lot of laws application. However, the idea, the principle of juxtaposition of these two redemptions, these two prototypes of redemption, of Purim and Pesach, that takes precedence, that supersedes, and therefore that's what we do. We celebrate on the second Adar. So as you know, the redemption of Pesach is the prototype, so to speak, of the divine guidance, the redemption of revealed miracles. Like I said before, the 10 plagues, later the splitting of the Red Sea, the whole God's guidance, his face is revealed. The hand of God is clear, expressed in history, in real reality. The miracle of Purim, the redemption of Purim, was like you had, what's the miracle? That's the miracle of, but God does it through the hidden face of God, the Hester Panim, as the Gemara says, Aster Astir, this prototype, this aspect of God's guidance in the hidden way, where you don't see his face, you don't see his hand express it. The Ramban at the end of Parshat Bo, it says how the revealed miracles come to get you to recognize the hidden miracles, for they are the foundation of Emunah. The belief that everything is miraculous, all that takes place, all that we think is natural, is the hand of God is working, maneuvering. But you don't see that. So the miracles, the revealed miracles come to teach you, to get you used to the seeing God face to face. And then even when you don't see him so much, you remember that he's there even when you don't see him. Like the children also, the psychology, right? The children, when the parents leave the room, they start crying and they need the parent with them, they can see them. Later they grow up and they can get used to, they know even when the parent, they don't see him, he's in the next room, they don't cry. So they recognize that they know that he's still there. They have the development to the point that they don't need the physical presence, so to speak. They know that he's there and watching and helping, guiding. So too, the 40 years in the desert, total miraculous guidance of God, the man from the heaven, the Slav, the pillar of fire, and the cloud leading them, guiding them, the direct hand of God. That was the 40 years to teach them, to get used to the clear awareness and connection to God, that even then now when you go to Eretz Yisrael, there will be the guidance of God in the natural world. You'll be planting and you'll be working and you'll be doing, and you can forget God, as the Torah says. You might forget the source who gives you the strength, but that's what God wants. God wants you to do and to work and be active in this world and to remember the source of all that. Where do you get the strength? Remember that gave you the strength to do all that, but you're doing. So that's the whole idea, that God wants us to work in this world. That's the remain children. Children, you at the beginning when they're born, you feed them, you do everything. They're passive. Everything's done to them. So too the Jews you left Egypt. God did everything. The wars, everything, the miracles was all done by God. But God wants us to grow up. God wants man to participate, man to be himself, to be independent, to use his faculties that he created him for, to bring godliness, to bring holiness, to be good out of free choice. So that's when we come to Eretz Yisrael. Now it's in your hand. You have to do and show and reveal and express, even though it's now hidden, to reveal God and remember God even in the time when it's not so clear. But that was like 40 years in the desert to give that training, that now even when you don't see me directly, you'll still remember who's running the show. And that's exactly the content of this juxtaposition of Pesach and Purim. That the Purim comes to teach us that element of God's guidance when it's not clear. The rest of the Tanakh is God's hand, miracles, and we see God. The book of the Megillat Esther adds to the Tanakh, completes the Tanakh with this other aspect for the next thousands of years, which will be the main guidance of God when his hand is not so clear. There are miracles of different direct dimensions, if you can call them miracles, are taking place today. The state of Israel, all these amazing things that God is doing. But again, that's what we call still in the realm of what the Ramban calls the hidden miracles. The hand of God revealed and concealed when humans are acting. And again, the splitting of the Red Sea or the 10 plagues wasn't human. I mean, Moshe, told them ahead of time, but it was all clear, the clear hand of God. Purim, or the book of Esther, teaches us the relationship to God when he guides us and watches the world and in what's called through natural means. And that's why Hanukkah isn't concluded, because Hanukkah already is written in the Tanakh. That principle of miraculous wars or other victories of wars and different things, that's what we have in the Tanakh. So that wasn't needed. In other words, it's an important content, and it's also for generations. But that's already found in the Tanakh. But the uniqueness or what is completed in the Tanakh through the book of Megillat Esther, that is this aspect of the hidden face of God, which is in that one verse in Devarim. But the book of Esther now is an elaboration, like we said, of that one verse, of the guidance of God in the natural. The juxtaposition of both is to teach us that just like in Pesach, what do we say? What's the verse in the Ten Commandments that summarizes, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, asher hotzeiti etcha be'eretz Yisrael. I'm the God that took you out of Egypt. Anochi, I took you out of Egypt. And also Purim is what we just said, Anochi Aster Astir, I will hide my face. It's the same Anochi. You might think God he ran the world, he did miracles for us when he left Egypt. But since then, God forbid, there's, other forces in nature, we're left to the abandoned to the whim of the nations in the world and politics. So you should know that it's the same Anochi, the Anochi that took you out of Egypt, the Anochi that is hiding my face, but it's no other than one and the same. It's the same Anochi, the I, the divine that is guiding you, but sometimes with the hidden face, sometimes with the revealed face. We say the Mizmor on Shabbat, Mizmor Shulam Shabbat, Lagid v'boker chazdecha ve'emunatcha balelot. That in the day, I see your kindness in the day, and in the night, it's the emunah, the faith. Because in the day, you see the glory of God, the goodness, when everything is good and happy, and you see the face of God, you see the glory of God and the chesed, the kindness of God. But the night, in the exile, in the suffering, in the persecution, all these, the period of 2,000 years of galut, then the nighttime, the exile is likened to the night, the night is emunah. That takes the faith, that takes this emunah, the vision that sees the hand of God even when it's not so clear, when it's hidden. It's not that he left us, but now he's guiding us in a different fashion. And that's why this message of Purim is to learn and to put the two together, to know that it's not God forbid, there's no other two forces. There's Mother Nature and there's God. God is stronger and bigger, but when he's not intervening, then nature runs itself and runs the show. No, the same Anochi that runs the world in the miraculous way, reveals the splitting of the laws of nature. There's also the main guidance of God is through nature itself, which is the goal, we said, of creation, to elevate, to connect all of the world, all of nature, to show that it's all the hand of God. There's no other forces outside, beyond. But Purim adds that special message and completes the Tanakh with that message, and that's the message we need throughout history, the exile. And we said so too. The rabbis point out the Gonim, or the period of the Gonim period, ask why is the book of the Tanakh that there's no mention of God's name. Say about Shir Shirim or something, but anyway, here's the Megillat Esther, one of the holy books, with certain laws that we have that it's like a Sefer Torah, has to be certain laws that of writing the Torah, so to apply to the Megillat of Esther. But how can it be a holy book with no mention of God's name? So the rabbis asked that, the Gonim. And they say that the name of God, as we know, is the way that God is revealed. His name is how he's revealed, how he's seen, how he's expressed in this world. When it's revealed, and his name is revealed. When in historical phenomena of Purim, as we said, he wasn't revealed, his hand wasn't clear. So too, his name is not clear, is not expressed. In the newspapers of Shushan, there was no, wow, God is saving the Jewish people and what he's doing here. All the miracles we read it in, 40 minutes, whatever. It was like 10 years or so, right? From 34, when you want to start from the party, 3395 to 3405. 10 years, the whole period, but we read it so quickly, and we say, wow, look at all the miracles, the juxtaposition of all these mikrim, all these coincidences, that Mordechai happened to be here, understood he was here, overheard these two people talking in a different language, but he was from the Sanhedrin, he knew 70 languages. All these coincidences that the Gemara, maybe we'll talk about a few, that show how God weaves the redemption through all these natural phenomena. So we see it for us, so to speak. When we read the Megillah, we know the end of the story. We see how it was all planned and worked out. Every detail was necessary to bring about the final thing. What seemed to be bad at the beginning, we know that's okay. Haman's making the tree, big high tree, and that's how he's hung on that. And after that is actually, how do you say, Persumenisa brings about the miracle to show everyone that Haman is hung on that very tree himself that he put so high that everyone, because the whole city could see him. What he thought was for Mordechai turned out to be for him. So you see all the bad things that we thought turned out for good. But if we were there, like I said, there was the name of God, the redemption of Israel wasn't on the newspapers there. The local newspapers didn't say how Mordechai is God's messenger, the amazing things that God is doing here. But we learn, and our message is to learn indeed how God weaves the redemption through all these natural phenomena, not through these coincidences. And that's the content of this special book of Esther. Like I said, completes that his name is not mentioned, although the Maral mentions and teaches us how to see the hand of God that is, like I said, weaving behind the scenes. Like what Kaplan said, like a puppet show. The strings, like things. So everyone sees the puppets moving. They think, wow, this is real. Everything they're doing it, they're deciding. There's someone above that's pulling the strings, and he's determining all that takes place here. So it depends. If you sit in the back, you don't see. Maybe the people in the front can see the strings. We have to be those that can see the strings, that know who's really pulling the strings of history, the mover of history. And that's the book of Esther to teach us in reality of seeing all the details and seeing what the Gemara that adds all the details to what took place here. Of like I said, the Maral brings one example before the Gemara, after the Gemara. He says how when Esther invites the king and Haman to come to the party, she says, "Yavo Hamelech v'Haman Hayom." You should come. You and him, the king and the Haman should come to the party. The initials, the acronym, right? The first letters of those words, Yavo Hamelech v'Haman Hayom, Yud Kei Vav Kei. So she's on the practice, in the practical world, she's inviting the king and Haman. But in her heart, she's inviting the king of kings. That's what the Gemara says. That wherever it says the king, it's referring to the king and also the king above, like Achashverosh, and also above. In other words, because who's pulling, again, who's behind the scenes, who's pulling it? There's all the, Rav Drucker brought down a lot of the Gemarot from Megillah, how every place it talks about how it has the king and how you see the hand of God working behind. It says when, to make a few stories, one of them, it says Basti was invited to the party to come not properly dressed. And usually she'd be happy to dance in front of everyone. But now it says that she had a tzarat, leprosy. Whatever, she couldn't, at this one time, there was a coincidence that she couldn't come this time. So you say by chance, but that's what caused about that she was knocked off to be the queen. Esther was in place of her and all this story, right? That she was now in the place when the time was needed. She was there to be the one to go in front of the king and to bring about this redemption of Israel, salvation of Israel in that time. So all these coincidences that took place that happened by chance. It says when she came in front of the king, when she wasn't called, right? If you don't get the scepter, then you're not death penalty. He wanted to make sure he doesn't have many people that come in that don't disturb his private world. If you enter without permission, without being called, unless you get the golden scepter, whatever, the Shavit Zahav. And indeed she came, but after 3 days of fasting, she would be very tired, very not so pretty. And it says an angel pushed her, the hand of Achashverosh, made her look pretty, made her stand up straight. All these angels, these divine forces of the hand of God worked it out that she would find favor in his eyes. So the Gemara tells you, reveals what's behind the scenes, how it's pushing the divine hand, so to speak, is maneuvering all these coincidences to work out, to bring about the redemption. The book of Esther is also used as the prototype for the final redemption. As we've learned, of those that were here at the beginning of the series, how the redemption comes, kima kima, slowly, slowly. Like the rabbis are walking and they see the sun rising, aret shachar, the morning star rising, and it becomes dark, whatever, and the rabbis say, and then the light starts to shine, and the rabbis say, thus is the redemption of Israel. It comes slowly, slowly. We pointed out there, slowly, slowly, even dafka when it gets darker, but that's the sign of the redemption. In other words, in the morning. But it's getting worse. You tell me the redemption now, and things are even getting darker, but that's how the redemption is preceded by what seems to be a hidden face. But nevertheless, the prototype for that, the rabbis go on and say, just like it was by Esther, and he gives statement by statement, the verse by verse, saying how Mordechai was over here, and then he went back to the king's palace, and he, stage by stage, how the redemption took place at the time of Esther. It wasn't all of a sudden, all at once. There's different stages, and how Mordechai was before the king, and then Mordechai took then Haman had the dress of the king, and then Mordechai got the dress of the king, went out in front of whatever, right, paraded in front with Haman, and then the Jews had, Sasson had the happy with their salvation. But the Gemara brings the prototype for the final redemption from the Megillat Esther. Another principle that we learn from Esther is v'nahafochu. Okay, how the very things that we thought were bad turned out to be beneficial, turned out to be the very means of redemption. Like I said, the classic example of the tree, right? He made the tree, what do you call it?
Gallows.
The gallows. He made the gallows for Mordechai. And that very tree turned out to be the gallows was the means of his own demise. Again, Rav Druckmann brought down the different things, how
he wanted to kill Mordechai and then he had to put him on a horse with a crown.
Okay, everything that it looks so bad, it looks like so too in our days, how Ruckman brought down how when the Americans told the British they should, after the Holocaust, to let in 100,000 certificates, let the Jews into to come, the survivors from the Holocaust, to let them into Israel, 100,000. America had no room. There was a quota; they had no room for them. They sent back the boats to St. Louis, back to Germany during the Holocaust. But after the Holocaust, they said let in 100 Jews, but Bevin said no, it'll cause problems. The air won't agree. It'll cause a world war. So they made a commission. The commission said that it won't cause a world war if 100,000 Jews come back. Anyway, they refused, and that's what brought this issue, the problem of Eretz Yisrael, to the UN, and the UN decided to make the mandate and take it from England and give it back to the Jewish people. So all these things that looked bad, actually there's also this road, when the Pope came, I forgot what year, maybe 66, before the Six-Day War, he refused to go in, I don't know, what any official places that the state of Israel, can't recognize the state of Israel because Christianity says that we're not supposed to come back, and if we're back, we're supposed temporarily or to be converted later, but we're not supposed to be here. It doesn't fit their plan of the Jewish people are supposed to be now replaced by the others. So he didn't want to go on any official roads, whatever, so they made a special road for him. I think through Yericho, whatever, I forget exactly where. David Chai Cohen once told her, I forget the details. But nevertheless, a few weeks later, I don't know how long later, when the Six-Day War broke out, that road was very beneficial, enabled the troops, the tanks, whatever, to go in a certain place that they couldn't go otherwise. That all that we thought was bad and our embarrassment and we submitting to him, whatever, turned out to be the very means of redemption, so to speak. But all throughout history. But again, like I said, the Gemara brings other concepts, but maybe we should. Just one other point here, how, first of all, the main point is this, actually Rav Druckmann wrote how, what people are asking today, how can we celebrate, how can we be happy on Purim this year with the middle of a war and all the funerals taking place still and the wounded. So he said also how Purim is something, the month of Adar, is a time when unfortunately sometimes bad things that take place, the Shachar, the darkest, sometimes the darkest before the dawn. Then it was Tafshin Nun Vav, I think 1996, there was a pigua in Tel Aviv. What? In 1996? Here was Erev Purim, he says, the morning, the day of Purim. In 1996, Tafshin Nun Vav. Anyway, there's a big pigua in Tel Aviv, and everyone was, and he talked about how the spirit of Purim, to understand that God is with us always, that all these things that, he started singing this certain song that Rav Kook wrote of the Hester Panim, that there is the Hester Panim, there is a hidden face of God, and that it does enable bad things to happen that we think that God has left us. But afterwards, what's revealed, that there's nothing outside the hand of God. Maybe that's, if I would, I mention what we said, the knowing heart I told you about last week. So there is one thing that's actually connected to that. What it looks like the world, how do you say it in English? The root of the entire existence of good and evil in the world is Creator's concealment of the countenance of His goodness, which allows room for evil. And first it allows evil to grow in strength and to achieve great dominion, without God's justice rising against it. And then it looks like, he says though, the conclusion that He never abandons and leaves the world. At the very time that the world seems to have been abandoned by Him, it looks like, you might think that though afterwards He does good. He knows the very time, at the time itself, like Haman is building the gallows, that itself, not like afterwards they'll be made up and contemplate whatever. He says the same time, at the very time that the world seems to have been abandoned by Him, He is devising good for His world. And His wonders and the thoughts are constantly directed towards the perfection of the universe. But He conceals His counsel. There's a time that it looks like the abandonment, this hidden face. And there is a hidden face. There is this aspect of godliness, of God's guidance. But even then, not to think that he's like I said, the Gemara talks about, the Christians say that he left us, he turned away. He didn't turn away. His face is concealed. You don't see His hand revealed. But it's there and guiding and directing even then. And again, what I want to tell you that time, even when it's, where's the Omnam? Page 49, the English. It says how there's a principle. It is dictated by I told you this, I should do this again at the last minute. But even when things are bad, and there's an aspect of the good of God that is revealed, maybe I'll read it quickly. It is dictated by the nature of the Supreme One. We mentioned there's the guidance of God that works for reward and punishment. Good, you get good, and bad gets bad. But there's another level, another dimension of bringing about the absolute oneness of God that is not subordinate to what human actions are to respond. You do good, you get good. In other words, if He's subordinate to what we do, we can destroy the world, we can ruin it, we can be bad. And what the Christians say, he mentions before, that God left the Jewish people. The Israel sinned, so God left them. As if He's subordinate to the laws. He made these laws, we didn't do it, so that's it, there's punishment. There's another level of the oneness of God, but that not only what he says here, in order to manifest the might, the strength, the scope of His complete sovereign over everything. So as long as He desires, the earth is to be left to the vicissitudes of time, while evil holds sway in the world. And what is more, He lets these forces go. And it looks like, you see, there's other forces in the world. God is good. He can do certain things. He's strong, but there's other forces that He can't control. They're beyond, they're independent. God forbid. So He lets this evil go astray, or to hold sway. He does not constrain this evil from doing all that it's its power to do, even if His creations thereby descend to the nethermost level. In spite of this, however, His world will not go lost. For His alone is the reign, ein od milvado. And in the end, the more forcefully evil brings itself to bear against men, the greater it went, the greater it was strength. And you see, wow, there really is this force that is independent, that is strong. The more manifest will be the strength of His oneness, right? The yichud, this oneness of God, and the omniscient sway of His reign. And from the very depths of our many sore trials, the salvation will most assuredly spring in the greatness of His might. I likened it once to remember a baseball, whatever, some team or some competition or a boxing match, where if you go into the match and the opponent doesn't show up, and your default, you're proclaimed the champion. But it's not so, it doesn't show how strong you are. The enemy wasn't there, it was weak. The stronger the enemy, the stronger the opponent, how strong he is, it looks like he's really, and you go against him and you overcome him, that's what shows the strength and the scope of God's goodness, of God's ideal that will overcome all, the good that will, defeat all the evil, will get rid of, eradicate all the evil, and God's oneness will be revealed in this total extent of dafka, because of the more manifest the strength of the evil, the more the oneness of God and the ein od milvado, that there's nothing outside. All that you thought was outside was so strong, was such an enemy, and that is overcome and defeated and subdued. That will ultimately show the bigger, what he calls the yichud Hashem, the oneness of God, the totality of His good, that there's nothing outside. A lot more to talk about, but that's the message of Purim. The recognition of God and the oneness of God is revealed not when the supernatural, as if God is in the heavens and the supernatural, but the nature, the other part of the world that is, He's not intervening. That's on its own and continues and runs the world as if independent. But no, even that which is natural, that which is man's doing, even when we fail and fall, and even that is part of this plan that will ultimately be rectified and elevated, like he says, every day brings the world closer to to the ultimate, everything will be, even all the evil will be returned to all the perfect good, the ultimate universal perfection. And every day is the process of manifesting that. So to see the everyday continuation of God's hand in the hidden, that's the book of Esther, to teach us to see, again, the running of the world, God's pulling of the strings, to bring about that beautiful content, not just he's stronger, but the content of good, of godliness, of holiness, of perfection, of tikkun olam. That is what is the real world, the really manifestation, the real what's behind the world, what's the purpose of creation, and what ultimately is now, but we don't see it. In God's eyes, there's no past, present, and future. The goal is. It's not a possibility. It's not a potential. It's not if we do something. That is the reality. We put us in a world that you don't see all that, and our goal is to make to pull those bricks, like you have these games, whatever. You knock out the bricks slowly. Every mitzvah we do, every good thing, every the faith and seeing God, it gets rid of the bricks that block that expression, that full realization, actualization of that goal, which is the foundation of creation and the purpose of and the ultimate fulfillment of creation. But to recognize that itself is part of what facilitates that goal of getting rid of that veil that is concealing that goodness, that holiness, that perfection, what a world is waiting us of all of mankind. And that's what Purim brings about, that the super hand of God that works even in the lowest level. The Chabad has a metaphor of there's a light that can illuminate to a certain distance, but a super light, a super projector illuminates even the lowest depth. The roots of the miracle of Purim, that is not just illuminates the spiritual world. You can see, wow, God's hand in the clear, the miraculous, and the heavenly abode does miracles. But it's so strong, it's so all-encompassing that it encompasses and elevates nature. Like Rav has a letter, Tafshin and Gimel, that the elevation of nature, that the fact that the redemption comes in a natural way is the highest level, that he calls it the Gvurat HaGvurot, the heroism of the heroism, the strength of all strengths, that, like I said in the Ramchal, that nothing is left out. All that you thought was devoid of divine content, was man-made, it was natural, that itself is working in the hands of God to weave out the redemption. That's the whole book of Purim. Hashem, we should be celebrate soon and see the meta fulfillment of the redemption in our days truly.